The rain hammered against the windows of the bar in Lagos as James sat alone in the corner booth, staring at the bottom of his sixth glass of whiskey. His tie hung loose around his neck, and his expensive suit was wrinkled from hours of sitting in the same position. The wedding ring he had worn for 5 years now sat in his pocket, a cold reminder of everything he had lost. Hello family, welcome back. Please take a moment to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. It truly means a lot to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. So sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Just 3 days ago, his wife Victoria had walked out of their Victoria Island mansion with her suitcases packed and divorce papers signed. Her words still echoed in his mind like a curse he could not escape. I cannot stay married to a man who cannot give me children, James. I have waited long enough. I deserve to be a mother. James had begged her to reconsider. He had promised they could adopt or try other options, but Victoria had made up her mind. The doctors had confirmed what he feared most. He was sterile. The diagnosis had shattered not just his dreams of fatherhood, but his entire marriage. Now, at 32 years old, the billionaire owner of Hernandez Industries felt like his life had ended. He waved for another drink, barely noticing the young waitress who approached his table. She moved quietly, her hands trembling slightly as she set down the glass. James looked up through blurry eyes and saw a petite woman with nervous eyes and a shy smile. Something about her gentle presence cut through his drunken fog. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked softly, concern filling her voice. James laughed bitterly. "Do I look okay?" He studied her more carefully, his judgment clouded by alcohol and pain. In his confused state he made a terrible assumption. "How much?" he asked suddenly. The waitress, whose name was Claire, stepped back in shock. "Excuse me? How much for the night?" James pulled out his checkbook, his hands shaking. "I will pay you 10 million naira. Just one night. Help me forget." Claire's face turned pale. "Sir, I am not. I am just a waitress." But James was already writing the check. "Everyone has a price. 10 million naira. Think about it." Claire stood frozen, her mind racing. 10 million naira. That amount could pay for her mother's surgery at the hospital in Abuja. Her mother was dying, and Claire had been working 3 jobs trying to raise the money. The doctors said they only had weeks left. This money could save her mother's life. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the broken man before her. She knew this was wrong. Everything inside her screamed to walk away. But the image of her mother lying in that hospital bed, weak and suffering, filled her mind. With shaking hands she reached for the check. What choice would Claire make, and would this one decision change both their lives forever? Claire woke up the next morning in a hotel room in Lekki, her heart pounding with shame and regret. The bed beside her was empty. On the pillow lay a note written in neat handwriting. "Thank you. Please forget this ever happened. Forget me." Beside the note was the check for 10 million naira, exactly as promised. Claire clutched the check to her chest and began to cry. She had compromised everything she believed in, but her mother would live. That had to count for something. She quickly dressed and left the hotel, vowing never to think about that night again. 6 weeks passed and Claire tried to move forward with her life. Her mother's surgery was successful, and she was recovering well in their small apartment in Sterile. Everything should have felt perfect, but something was wrong. Claire felt tired all the time, nauseous in the mornings, and her body felt different. When she finally gathered the courage to take a pregnancy test, her worst fear was confirmed. She was pregnant. Claire sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the positive test in disbelief. How could this be happening? That night was supposed to be forgotten, buried in the past. But now a life was growing inside her, a constant reminder of her decision. She knew she had to tell him. It took her 2 weeks to gather the courage to return to the bar where they had met. She asked the manager about the wealthy man who had been there that night. The manager's eyes widened. "You mean Mr. James? He owns half of Lagos. His office is in the towers on Victoria Island." 3 days later, Claire stood in the lobby of James Industries, clutching her purse nervously. The building was all glass and marble, a monument to wealth she could barely imagine. She told the receptionist she needed to see Mr. James urgently. When she was finally escorted to his office on the 40th floor, James looked up from his desk in shock. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then his face hardened with anger and confusion. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. Claire's voice shook as she spoke. "I am pregnant. The baby is yours." James stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. His face turned red with rage. "That is impossible. I cannot have children. The doctors confirmed it." I am sterile. I am telling you the truth, Claire said, tears streaming down her face. I have not been with anyone else. I did not want this to happen, but it did. You are lying. James shouted. You are trying to trap me for more money. Get out of my office before I call security. Please just take a test, Claire begged. A paternity test. If I am lying, you will never see me again. James stared at her, his chest heaving with emotion. Finally, he pressed the button on his phone. Call my doctor. Now. 2 weeks later, James sat in his doctor's office in Ikoyi, staring at the paternity test results in his hands. His fingers trembled as he read the words over and over again. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. The doctor, an elderly man named Dr. Harrison, smiled warmly. It seems the original diagnosis was wrong, Mr. James. Sometimes these things happen. Medical science is not always perfect. You are indeed the father, and you are not sterile. James felt his whole world shift. For years, he had believed he could never have children. His marriage had ended because of that belief. He had drowned himself in alcohol and self-pity. And now, this young woman he barely knew was carrying his child, a miracle he thought would never happen. He found Claire waiting in the hospital corridor, her face pale with anxiety. When she saw him approaching, she stood up quickly, bracing herself for more accusations and anger. But instead, James stopped in front of her and did something unexpected. He fell to his knees. I am so sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I called you a liar. I treated you terribly. But the test proves you were telling the truth. You are carrying my child, something I thought I would never have. Claire stared down at him in shock, unsure how to respond. This powerful billionaire was kneeling before her in a public hospital, tears in his eyes. Please forgive me, James continued. And please let me take care of you and our baby. You do not have to do this alone. Over the following days, James made arrangements. He insisted Claire move into his mansion in Victoria Island, where she would have her own room, access to the best doctors, and everything she needed. Claire hesitated at first, but her small apartment in Sterile was not suitable for a pregnant woman, and her mother encouraged her to accept his help. When Claire arrived at the mansion with her few belongings, she was overwhelmed by its size and luxury. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and expensive artwork filled every room. But what struck her most was how empty it felt, like a museum instead of a home. James showed her to a beautiful bedroom on the second floor. This is yours, he said. Anything you need, just ask. As Claire unpacked, she noticed something strange. Throughout the house, there were empty spaces on walls where pictures had clearly hung before. Rectangles of unfaded paint marked where frames had been removed. In the master bedroom, half the closet was empty, and there were gaps on the dresser where perfume bottles had once stood. That evening, Claire found James in his study, staring at a photo he held in his hands. Who is she? Claire asked quietly. James looked up, startled. For a moment, he considered lying, but then he sighed. My ex-wife. What secrets from his past would threaten their fragile future? James looked down at the photograph in his hands, his jaw tight with old pain. Her name was Victoria. We were married for 5 years. When the doctors told me I could not have children, she left me. She said she deserved to be a mother more than she wanted to be my wife. Claire sat down across from him, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. I am sorry that happened to you. I removed everything that reminded me of her, James continued, gesturing around the house. Every picture, every gift, every trace. I thought I could erase the pain by erasing the memories, but it did not work. He looked up at Claire with sincere eyes. Then you came back into my life. You brought me hope I thought was dead. This baby, our baby, is a miracle. And I promise you, I will not make the same mistakes again. The weeks that followed were strange for both of them. They lived in the same house but moved around each other like careful strangers. James hired the best doctors in Port Harcourt to monitor Claire's pregnancy. He made sure she ate well, rested enough, and had everything she needed. But they barely spoke beyond practical matters. Slowly, things began to change. James started coming home earlier from work to have dinner with Claire. They would sit in the large dining room talking about small things, her mother's recovery, his business deals, the baby's upcoming arrival. Claire discovered that beneath his cold businessman exterior, James had a gentle heart that had been badly wounded. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the sunset over Lagos, James reached over and carefully placed his hand on Claire's growing belly. May I? He asked softly. Claire nodded, and they both felt the baby kick for the first time. James's eyes filled with tears of joy. That is our child? he whispered in wonder. Our child. From that moment, something shifted between them. James became more protective and attentive. He would leave small gifts for Claire, her favorite fruits from the market, flowers for her room, books she had mentioned wanting to read. Claire found herself looking forward to seeing him each day, watching for his car to pull into the driveway. 3 months into her pregnancy, Claire accompanied James to a business dinner at a restaurant in Ikoyi. As they were leaving, a beautiful woman in an expensive dress suddenly appeared in front of them. James? The woman said, her voice full of false sweetness. James's whole body went rigid. Victoria. His ex-wife looked from James to Claire, her eyes narrowing when she noticed the pregnancy. I heard rumors you had moved on, but I did not believe them. James, we need to talk. I made a mistake leaving you. I want to come back. James's voice turned ice cold. You walked out when you thought I was sterile. You chose the idea of children over our marriage. Now I am having a child with someone who actually cares about me, not just what I can give her. Victoria's face twisted with anger. You mean with this common girl? James, be serious. She is obviously only with you for your money. James stepped forward, his voice sharp as a knife. Claire has more integrity in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She is carrying my child and she is the woman I choose. Now get out of my sight. What would happen when they returned home that night? When they arrived back at the mansion, Claire went straight to her room without saying goodnight. James stood in the hallway, confused and worried. He knocked gently on her door. Claire? Are you all right? I am fine, came her muffled reply, but he could hear she was crying. James opened the door slowly and found her sitting on the bed, tears streaming down her face. He rushed to her side. What is wrong? Did Victoria upset you? Please do not listen to anything she said. Claire wiped her eyes. She was right about one thing. I did take money from you that first night. Maybe I am just like she said, someone who is only here for what you can give me. Stop, James said firmly, taking her hands in his. You took that money to save your mother's life. That does not make you greedy or bad. It makes you a loving daughter who was desperate. Victoria left me because she wanted children more than she wanted me. You never asked me for anything beyond that one night, and you only came back because you had to tell me about the baby. There is a big difference. He reached up and gently wiped away her tears. You have shown me more kindness in these few months than Victoria showed me in 5 years of marriage. You listen when I talk about my day. You laugh at my terrible jokes. You make this empty house feel like a home. Claire looked up at him, her heart racing. James, I need to tell you something. I know this started in the worst possible way, but somewhere along the line my feelings changed. When I see you come home each evening, my heart lifts. When you are away, I miss you. I am not supposed to feel this way, but I do. James's breath caught in his throat. What are you saying? I am saying I love you, Claire whispered. Not because of your money or this house or even because you are the father of my baby. I love you because of who you are. The man who kneels in hospitals to apologize, who brings me oranges because he remembers they are my favorite, who talks to our baby every night before bed. That is the man I fell in love with. For a long moment, James just stared at her, unable to speak. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. I love you too, Claire. I think I started falling in love with you the day you bravely came to my office to tell me about the baby, even knowing I might reject you. You are the strongest, most honest person I have ever met. He pulled back to look at her face. I thought my life was over when Victoria left. I thought I would never know love or family again. But you gave me both. You gave me everything. They sat together on the bed, holding each other as the baby moved between them. Outside, the lights of Lagos glittered in the darkness. But inside that room, two broken people had finally found their way to healing. Marry me, James said suddenly. Not because of the baby, but because I want to spend every day of my life making you happy. Because you are my miracle. Claire laughed through fresh tears. Yes. Yes, I will marry you. But would their newfound happiness survive what was coming next? 3 months later, Claire stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the simple white dress that flowed over her now very round belly. Today was her wedding day, a small, private ceremony in the mansion's garden with only close friends and family. Her mother sat on the bed behind her, tears of joy in her eyes. I am so proud of you, my daughter, her mother said. You have been through so much, but you never lost your goodness. And now look at you, about to marry a man who truly loves you. Claire turned and hugged her mother carefully. Thank you for always believing in me, Mama. Even when I made that terrible choice at the bar, you did not judge me. You helped me find my way. Downstairs, James paced nervously in his study, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. His best friend Benjamin laughed at him. I have never seen you this anxious, not even before your biggest business deals. This is more important than any business deal, James said, smiling. This is my future. My family. Everything that truly matters. The ceremony was beautiful and simple. Under a canopy of white flowers, James and Claire exchanged vows they had written themselves. James promised to honor her strength, cherish her kindness, and love her more each day. Claire promised to stand by him through every challenge, to build a home filled with laughter, and to never forget how far they had come together. As they kissed, their friends and family clapped and cheered. Even the baby seemed to celebrate, kicking strongly enough that both James and Claire laughed during their first kiss as husband and wife. That evening, after the guests had left, James and Claire sat together in the garden where they had first felt the baby kick months ago. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Do you ever think about that night at the bar? Claire asked quietly. How different our lives could have been if I had just walked away. James took her hand. I think about it sometimes. I was so broken that night, so lost. I made a terrible assumption about you and I am still ashamed of that. But somehow from that awful beginning we found something real. We found each other, Claire said, leaning her head on his shoulder. Do you have any regrets? James asked. Claire thought for a long moment. I regret how we started. I wish our story had begun differently. But I do not regret where we ended up. You taught me that mistakes do not have to define us. We can choose to grow from them to become better. James kissed her forehead. You taught me that miracles can come from the darkest places. That hope can return even when you think it is gone forever. You saved me, Claire. We saved each other, she corrected him. 2 months later, their daughter was born, a healthy baby girl they named Hope. As James held his daughter for the first time, looking at his wife sleeping peacefully in the hospital bed, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a drunken night of desperation to a love that healed 2 broken hearts. From shame and regret to joy and family. Life had given him a second chance, and he would spend every day proving he deserved it. Claire woke up and smiled at him, and in that smile, James saw their whole future, full of love, laughter, and the miracle of family they had built together from the ashes of their lowest moments. We've come to the end of today's story. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories. See you in the next one.